Hello, welcome to Rough Cut Film. This is a review of the film Gangster Squad, which is not only a very silly title but also it's slightly misleading. Gangster Squad are not a squad of gangsters, they're police who fight against gangsters. So this is directed by Ruben Fleischer, who comes from doing bits and pieces for television, and he made the okay but not as good as it should have been film Zombieland. So, the plot. Sean Penn, with some very strange prosthetics, is a Jewish ex-boxer turned self-styled personal future of the west coast of the USA called Mickey Cohen. He's broken away from the Italian mafia back in Chicago and relocated to LA, and due to his bloodthirsty and generally sadistic behaviour, the mob back in Chicago are very hesitant to sort of rein him in or challenge him for power in LA. They send a sort of negotiation team over to negotiate with him, and then bad stuff happens to the negotiation team. LA is very corrupt, and it's sold very early as Cohen's own town, so the police and the judges are either corrupt or too scared to do anything. Apathy is set in with the ones that aren't actually actively on the take. So step in Josh Brolin's tough as nails bulldog Irishman cop who was a war hero and now he's in the police. He is very sort of straight edge, straight as a dime. He's a warrior, you know, he won't negotiate, all this sort of thing. The police chief takes him and says, I want you to put together a secret, you know, the eponymous Gangster Squad, a secret small team of elite cops, each with their own special skill, to operate outside of the law, no badges, no arrests, but go to war on Mickey Cohen. First thing to mention really is that it's very much an ensemble film. It's we've got Penn and we've got Josh Brolin, joined by Emma Stone, Ryan Gosling, Michael Pena, Nick Nolte, and various other really good actors. The standard of acting here is very fine indeed. Much like End of Watch, which also featured Michael Pena, the women characters have got sort of little to do but talk about loyalty and honour and that kind of thing to their men. The women are perfectly fine actually, and the most significant one being Emma Stone, who gets the most sort of screen time, and you know her personality is fleshed out a little bit but not really. Penn for me as Mickey Cohen was problematic, and that was the one character I took umbrage with really. He's playing a very much a pastiche. It's sort of a hodgepodge of different crime bosses you've seen in loads of other films. There's a bit of Scarface, there's a bit of De Niro's Al Capone, and the performance never really settles down. It's either 0 or turned all the way up to 11. The prosthetics don't help at all, so we get this impression of a comic book villain. He's very much two-dimensional, and as I said, it's just a patchwork of bits and pieces, and he's not a character in his own right. As I've said, the cast is very strong, so apart from Penn, I think they do a very good job. Straight away, we can see the influences of The Untouchables, and to be perfectly honest, this could be relocated to LA. This could be a remake of The Untouchables film, which I like so much. There is a very strong, more than a hint, there's a very strong taste of LA Confidential in there, and the relatively recent video game LA Noire. This is sort of beating around the bush way of saying that this film doesn't have an original bone in its body. That's not necessarily the end of the world, because there's fun to be had. You know, it's cops after revenge against the mob, vicious fighting, shootouts, excuses for car chases, shootouts, punch-ups, all this kind of thing. We have seen all of this before, and the film is not without its problems. The director for me is the wrong choice. Overall, he does an okay job, but he wavers between competent and ill-judged. For example, the gunfight at the end of the film, which is, I'm sure it's no spoiler to say in this film, there's a gunfight at the end. For some reason, it all goes into slow-mo, so he uses these different techniques. Much like Penn's performance, it doesn't really settle down. So, for a lot of the film, he does an okay job, never really better than okay, and then at times it's just ill-judged and you know, poor discipline. With the talent on view here, if this film had been directed by someone like Nicholas Winding Refn, I'd have been really excited, but you know, unfortunately that wasn't to be. So we've seen all this before. Having said that, there is fun to be had here. The plot makes no sense whatsoever. and there are fairly significant plot developments that are straight from the pages of a pulp noir thriller and not a blockbuster. There's all sorts wrong with the plot. It really doesn't make much sense. So in summary, this film's problematic. There's a lot wrong with it, but as a bit of cheesy fun, it's perfectly fine. I did enjoy the action sequences, with the exception of the final one, and the final punch-up was a little bit clawing and cringeworthy. Ryan Gosling is fantastic in everything. I've seen him in very diverse roles. He's in this not as the most particularly interesting character in the world, but he is surely well on his way to being the biggest star in Hollywoodland. I mean, I've seen some very, very negative reviews of this, and I can completely understand why people would go in and dismiss this as a bit of cynical remaking of what people would like. I can completely appreciate that, but actually, it would be wrong for me to say I didn't enjoy, fairly large elements of this film. So there we go, Gangster Squad. If you go in knowing what you're going to get, it's perfectly all right. Kind regards, Chris Thomas.